started it. Oh, now it's recording. Got the message. So the recording just missed my intro. But yeah, so Sutori.com is my first company. And what it does essentially is, that PowerPoint collaborative one. And so we started it in Belgium, got some government grants in Belgium to get started, but then ended up moving to the US because there weren't any funding opportunities for us at that time in 2013 in Belgium. And so we grew the company a lot. It's used by over 2.3 million teachers and students around the world. And about 4 or 5 years ago, when we started to earn a revenue and salaries, we started to care more and more about our pension and what we were going to do with it. And so that was the prompt for my second idea, entrepreneurial idea, which was to start a second company, which solves that particular point of making sure that we retire on our own terms and the money is invested every month, and then you kind of grow your portfolio, and then you kind of can retire on your own terms over the long run. So that company is called Curvo. It's a Belgian company. So moved back from the US to Belgium. And yeah, we're here to kind of tell you a bit more about the entrepreneurial scene around Europe, but also share a bit more from our experiences of running two companies, but also choosing the path of self-employment rather than having a more traditional job. So yeah, I'm really curious to kind of get to know you all and get to hear all your questions as well. But I know Charlotte's got a few questions before.
Super, thank you for an awesome introduction. And now everything is in place, even the recording. So it's great to start and go to our second questions. When we talk about self-employment in the European Union, you often hear the concept of the entrepreneurial ecosystem. So what do we mean about this concept? What does it talk about? And when we talk about the European Union's entrepreneurial ecosystem, what's the actual situation currently?
Yeah, no, it's like quite a tough question in the sense that, like, I find the ecosystem, it's definitely growing a lot. So I can only speak from my experience as an entrepreneur. And when we started 10 11 years ago with the idea for Sutori, it was really difficult because there wasn't really much of an ecosystem, at least in particular in Belgium. And for the EU, it was quite split per country and fragmented per country. But what we did join at that time was like an accelerator program, which was quite novel. Obviously now there's a lot of programs that kind of help you, but at that time it was very novel. And this was in South Belgium, and they kind of gave us a bit of seed funding and kind of got us to accelerate. And then that ecosystem was helped in the sense that we then got a government grant to kind of get the product built and trying to get our first customers. But then we kind of ran into a roadblock, which was the need for private funding to kind of grow the company. And that's why we ended up moving to the US. But that was, back obviously 10, 11 years ago. And now when I look at it, starting a second company, moving back to Europe and moving back to Belgium, I've seen that the ecosystem has like evolved a lot and it's grown. So now when we started Curvo, there was already, at the EU level, there's a lot more programs. There's a lot more national programs as well within, like, Belgium. Obviously, Belgium's split between different sections, but there is still support for startups and support for entrepreneurs. And then overall, as an ecosystem, like, the thing that we notice the most is just the growth of companies, and that comes from the success of European startups. So, they will often talk about PayPal mafia, like the fact that when PayPal was so successful, they kind of created an ecosystem. And we kind of get that in Europe now. There's like the Skype one, there's Spotify, there's also the TransferWise. There's all these kind of companies that are very EU-led, which have had a lot of success, which are public, and they've kind of given back to the ecosystem. And another country, like, so my partner, she's Finnish, and I lived in Helsinki for a little bit. And what we noticed over there as well is, like, there's Supercell, which is like a gaming company, which I never heard of until we moved there. And, the fact that they're so successful and they've created such value that it's actually inspiring a lot more entrepreneurship and a lot more entrepreneurs to create companies. So I think, what does it mean essentially, like entrepreneurial ecosystem? It means that more and more entrepreneurs starting companies, and they're kind of helping each other, and there's a lot more of a support network to ensure success. And I think in a way it kind of pushes more people to go down the self-employment entrepreneurial route, which obviously I'm a huge advocate for. So I think it's really great to see.
Thank you a lot. Thank you a lot. And it's always, whoop, for this huge, very completing answer. And now I'm just gonna up here. Thomas, and you were talking about these opportunities that it has been growing. And what about, do you feel like it's also benefiting the youth, people in the European Union, when we talk about people that are 18 to 30?
Yeah, definitely, like 100% it is. You know, I obviously I in a way, looking back now, I wish I just like kind of ignored studies and just went straight to building companies, because I just love that aspect of building products and servicing a product to the market and getting feedback and then people using it. Like I just get such a kick from that. But in a way, I do also see the benefits of having some sort of formal study, and then also understanding that kind of academic rigor, which does help you long term when you're building a company. I do think it's moved a lot in that we even in Europe, I idolize a lot of entrepreneurs. It's a shame that they're so usually US focused or based in the US. And you can see it with Elon Musk as an example, that so many people idealize him. And in a way, it is good because it's helping young people kind of create their own vision and their own like version of who they want to be without following a traditional route. And I do think you can see it in a lot more companies that are created. Like I know here in Belgium, we have a lot of different students at the university level, and also some high school ones who are actually creating, companies, or who are being self-employed, starting as a freelancer, learning to work with clients, learning specific skills. It could be coding, or it could be design, it could be anything related to kind of a tech environment. And I've seen them just creating so much value. And in a way, I think that's why it's so helpful to have more and more entrepreneurs in the space. Like it's a net benefit for society, is my belief. And I think we can see that in just the amount of companies or freelancers which are starting. At least I'm speaking mainly from a tech background, but I also see it a lot in just day to day of people starting a coffee shop or starting a pop-up restaurant. There's so many different opportunities where people are actually getting their hands dirty and getting to work.
Thank you very much. And knowing this, could you mention a few of the concrete programs that the European Union has put in place for future entrepreneurs, or current entrepreneurs?
Yeah, no, there's a lot of different programs that the EU offer. It is tough to navigate and to know which ones to apply for. And what I suggest to a lot of the people starting out is figure out what kind of resources and support can you get at a local level. Because a lot of those local support programs are actually funded by the EU. So you're still getting supported by the EU, but just at a really local level. And then you kind of move up the food chain as you kind of grow your business or your idea or your startup. And so, I'll give another example for Finland. There's Business Finland, which is extremely supportive of any kind of innovation or any kind of new business that you want to create, and that they will give you a bit of seed funding, they'll give you a bit of mentorship, and then they will help you kind of get started. In Belgium, it's similar programs as well. It's not as easy to get, but then also you have to come up with the right kind of idea and the right kind of pitch that you want and how you're going to use that money. And so it is there are a lot of different programs. Another one that Sutori benefited from was the Horizon 2020 EU program, which was related to, they had a whole section which was to help startups in education technology, to help a lot more European schools across Europe be able to use technology in the classroom. And so we actually benefited from that. It enabled us to provide our software for teachers and schools all over Hungary, specifically. And it was a really beneficial program, which kind of helped us a lot to offer our product. And so there are a lot of programs. I know it's difficult to navigate through all of the materials you see online, but just start small, start at a local level, and then build your way up.
Thank you, Thomas. And actually, I hear that we already have a question, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course.
Are you ready to answer your first one?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, Thomas, how important was mentorship in your journey? And how can the individuals that would like to embark on the self-employment path find the right ones to mentor them?
Yeah, that's a really
Wow.
good question. I don't
Yeah.
know who asked it, but it's a very good question. So, actually, mentorship is very important. So, the most important part was like when I started the first company, I was like 20, 24 years old. I thought I knew everything, but I really didn't. And I'd fortunately had a mentor who kind of helped me on the business side of things, and really wasn't there to kind of answer all my questions, but more to ask the right questions towards me. And so I'm still very close with that mentor, and we still discuss multiple things, although he's not as involved in my second company as he was in the first. But it was very important to find that one mentor. And to be honest, when we then kind of grew the company, it was a lot of other people that we had in our network, which I think they play such an important role, mentors, just because they're really there to not they don't. I think the best ones, like we've had many, and the best ones are the ones who just who kind of challenge you, and that has been really important. I think if you're a young person in Europe right now and you're looking for a mentor, honestly, if you like the way I did it is I focused on what was the kind of person that I wanted to learn from and be inspired with. And so I did that outreach myself, and you'll be surprised it works really well. Like I mentor one startup with two guys who are university level, and they just reached out to me on LinkedIn, and just I really liked their kind of pitch and their idea, and I was there to kind of support them. And so that aspect, I think, is the best way to find mentors, is to just reach out directly to them. And you'll find that no matter how busy a founder is or someone that you look up to, in the end, everyone's human. Everyone likes to be important and play a role as well. So I definitely think it's important. And then there's a whole like concept, at least with European entrepreneurs, I've seen very much that they kind of pay it back. So it's very much a kind of an entrepreneurial code, at least in tech startups, that that a lot of people helped you get there, and you want to kind of get back. So don't hesitate to just reach out to people.
Yes, that's a super important lesson. Be human to another human. And as we can hear from you, and we can all see that you're a huge self-employment advocate. And as many youngsters that we can find to become self-employed, the better it is. But what do you think are the challenges why many youngsters struggle and don't find that path? And how do you think it could be overcome? Is there something that you feel like the European Union even might or could even do?
Yeah, I think so. There's multiple factors. I think, I look back on my education, and we didn't really have any entrepreneurship curriculum. We didn't have any entrepreneurship lessons. I was just fascinated with starting companies and like doing small businesses, and like I was always kind of obsessed with doing that. So I kind of did it myself. But I do wish there was more, at least at the secondary school level, like at least a few classes a year, just about that you can choose your own path and you can become a self-employed person. I think that's why it is such a challenge for a lot of people to get started. Then secondly, I think it's difficult because you take such a big risk, and so if you're young, generally you don't have much money. And so it's difficult to say, okay, I'm not going to get paid for 6 months or 9 months or a year until I can get my business up and running. You might have to borrow money. You might have to, try and figure out a way to get it. And so that's like one of the biggest challenges is exactly that. From my perspective, I'm obviously fortunate that I had multiple little jobs on the side, and I was still getting some sort of revenue in, but it still took us like about 4 years, where it was very difficult with Sutori until I could actually get a actual salary to kind of grow and not have to worry about money so much. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges is obviously the resources, which can help when you get grants, but it is difficult when you're also very young, because I've been through it myself. People don't take you that seriously, and so you constantly have to prove people wrong, and that's also a very big challenge. It's constantly trying to prove yourself, even though you're doing your best to kind of get your business up and running and get it off the ground, but then you still have to constantly prove and execute on your idea.
Thank you. Like courage is the key in this and in many other things as well. But my next question is, maybe we have some viewers at the moment, but if I, Charlotte, today decide I have a business idea, I have the elements, I decide to take the path of self-employment, what would be your top 3 advices to me today?
Yeah. It's always difficult to kind of come up with those top ones, but I can just say, like, at least from building 2 companies, the biggest thing that I've learned is to talk to your customers, which sounds very obvious, but many entrepreneurs don't do it. And I didn't do it at first with Sutori, and you end up just building the wrong things, or you have ideas in your head, but you haven't validated them. And so just the first thing is just speak to people. So if you have an idea that you want to, open up a gourmet coffee shop, then go speak to people who like gourmet coffee and see if it's something, there's a problem in their lives, wherever you want to build it. And if there's no, just there's so many questions that you can ask related to any kind of business. So just speak to people, speak to your customers, get all of that feedback in, and then try. And the second piece of advice is more of a tech basis, but you can also apply it to any kind of company, is do a minimal viable product, so an MVP. And so what I mean by that is you don't have to take out a loan and build a coffee shop for your gourmet coffee. You could just have a stand at an event at a university or somewhere. You just test it out, you get market validation. That's like a minimum viable product. And if people like your coffee, or they think the price is right, or they think it's too cheap or too expensive. So that would be a second piece of advice. And then the third one I would suggest is to, just get started. So you'd be surprised at how many people aspire to be a freelancer or self-employed, but never take the plunge. And I understand why, because it is very difficult. But what I suggest often is, if you have another source of income, or you have a job, or you're still at university, just take it as a sort of side hustle, like start small and then just expand out. So get validation, get information from the market, see if you're comfortable working on this kind of project without taking the full risk of stopping your studies to launch something. Just get started small. And with our second company, Curvo, we just started on 1 day a week while we were still working on our first company. So we gradually changed the roles, but at first it was still just like, we don't know if this thing's going to work, we don't know if people are gonna want to use it. And so we just kind of did it part-time until it became like the main focus. So yeah, those are my 3 pieces of advice. But I'm sure if you ask me tomorrow, maybe they'd be different ones. But at least that's what I'm thinking about now.
Thank you very much. Big and great advices. You touched a bit already on this, and you said just get started, because as you said, I think we both know about people like this that have all the elements and have all the strategies, and then the lack of the last push. Like, what if I'm not courageous enough. What's your secret to be courageous and just move forward?
Yeah, my secret is I'm very optimistic, which works against me as well. But I think that a lot of entrepreneurs are extremely optimistic because you have to be, because you believe in your idea or your concept, and you believe that you're solving a problem, and that's what motivates you so much to kind of get up every day and have to work for yourself, even though sometimes you're facing really the end or of the company, or you feel like you've made the wrong decisions. But that's the point, is as an entrepreneur you're always learning. And I think that's what excites me more, is the fact that I keep learning every day. Every month there's something new that I learn, and that I wouldn't change. I mean, we started in, I studied history and Chinese, and now I started a company in education technology, and now my second company is in finance. So it's a bit of a crazy journey, but it shows also that, like, yeah, I just love learning about all these things, and who knows, in 10 years maybe it'll be health tech, or I don't know, something else.
Thank you very much, Thomas. And I think now we've talked a bit and a lot, you and me. Now, if dear viewers at home, if you have any questions, comments, please, you can even talk, open your video if you have the courage, or simply in the chat. The stage is yours. Thomas is here to answer your questions.
Yeah, I've seen some notifications of questions coming in, so I
Let's
don't know.
see the chat. Okay. Yes, you're right. There is. Thomas, what skills do you believe are essential for young individuals considering self-employment? We made it. You, what are
Yeah,
the skills?
yeah, it's quite a challenging one. I think I spoke on some of the skills. I think it depends at the age level, but I do think, like, a lot of the skills is, yeah, that willingness to learn, the also the ability to want to solve a particular problem. I don't know what kind of skill that is, but it's very innate in a lot of self-employed and like entrepreneurs. It's the idea that you can really like see a problem that you're really unsatisfied with the current offering, and you want to solve it in a better way. And I think that's one skill which is very hard to teach, but I think in the right kind of environment, like, a lot of young individuals can thrive on that. Another skill I think is, yeah, obviously learning, the problem solving, but then also, yeah, willingness to listen as well. I think is really a strong skill. Is, like I mentioned previously, was, one important thing is to kind of talk to your customers or potential customers, and you'll find that a lot of the skills there is related to listening to exactly what a customer wants, not what you want them to say or what you want to hear, but rather what are they really saying. And that's a very important skill. And I think a lot of successful entrepreneurs, like far more successful than anything that I've done, a lot of them, they've got those bases, those three skills really nailed on. And that's really quite something that you see in a lot of young people, which means that they're on the pathway to success.
Thank you very much, Thomas. I'll just have a quick look in the chat if there is even more. Up. Okay, next, are you ready, Thomas?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. What advice would you give to your younger self when you were just starting out?
Oh, well.
How old were you?
I was like 24, but like
24.
I started different small companies at like 16, or companies.
Yeah.
They were just like websites that I would do and then sell. Um, I think my advice, like when I started like in an official capacity, was, I made so many mistakes. Like it took like 4 years to really get it off the ground. And it's because I didn't really know what I was doing, even though I had like a mentor. It was still, everything was so new, of building something from scratch. And fortunately, I surrounded myself with my co-founders who had skills that I didn't have, and that was like something that really helped me and helped so many young people if they're building a company to not do it alone, which is so challenging. But fortunately you can surround yourself with good people. But I do think like one advice I would give to myself is really to, yeah, again, don't build things that you think people want, but build things that people actually want. And I think that was such a waste of time when I think about it now, that you have an idea in your head, you build it on a technology standpoint, you launch it, and then you go into, like, for us it was education technology, so you go into a classroom and then you see that everything you'd built, when you see it in real life and you see people using it, they're using it completely differently to how you imagined or how you'd actually envisaged. And so that's the real thing that I go back and tell myself, like, don't build blindly, like just take your time and really speak to your customers to get the product out there on the right way. Because yeah, it costs money, and of course it costs a lot of time. But obviously hindsight is quite easy. But I would say like that was really a good piece of advice I wish I had taken on board.
Thank you so much, Thomas. Let's see. It's Krista is loving this conversation so far. Many questions. Okay, next one. A tip to share for those interested in trying self-employment with community support. I'm currently attending this program for non-binary and women entrepreneurs in Helsinki. And then there's the link. And I just read that in 2021, women founders of startups got only 1.8% of Europe's investments. So there's definitely a need for an inclusion in the startup sector. How have you noticed this, Thomas, during your years as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think Krista makes a good point that it's extremely male orientated and male focused. I don't know why it stems from that. I think again it comes back to our conversation around role models, in that that's the problem, is that so many of the idolized entrepreneurs, they often young men, and there's not sufficient like women being put in the spotlight. And then you see it at a board level as well. It's not just the investments, it's also the people who are investing money into companies all over Europe. A lot of them are still men, and I think that plays a role. And then they fund other people who they feel like they're more close to, or like they feel like they can see themselves in that. And that's why it's kind of like that system it is a bit of a struggle. And I see it, like, at least with a couple of my like female founder friends, is that they have a lot more work to do to raise money than like we had to do with our company, for example. And like they get asked different types of questions, which make it terribly unfair as well, which nobody would ask me about my plans over the next 5 years and if I want to have a family. But a woman entrepreneur will get those kind of questions, which is just ridiculous, really, in 2023. So I think it's definitely improving a little bit, but it's still such a long way to go and a long road to go. At Sutori, we were fortunate that we had majority of our investors were women, which was surprising. But it's not surprising in the way, because a lot of the education technology investors were women, more than a lot of the other industries. But yeah, that's definitely something that I'm not sure what's happening at the EU level to kind of do that. But I do hope it's going to get better in the next 10 years. It's been pretty slow, though, I have to admit, from my perspective.
But the direction is right and things are moving. They take time, but slowly but surely. Let's hope that someday we don't need to ask this question and it becomes a norm, that entrepreneurs come in all sizes and genders. Do we have any more questions from our viewers? Comments, thoughts? Oh, we do actually. Up from your tech experience, is there any emerging industries or sectors you see that are promising for the future young entrepreneurs in Europe?
Yeah, I think just specifically on the tech side, I think there's so much. Obviously, all the buzz is about AI, but there is definitely a lot of opportunities there to kind of build on top of a language learning model and build like a service on top of ChatGPT, for example. And so I do think there's a lot of opportunity there, and that's kind of exciting. I think if you're young right now and you kind of have this clean slate and you can kind of build on top of that technology, I think that's really promising. And then otherwise, I think there's a lot of there's a lot of opportunity in just so many different tech products, which in the end, we always go through these like kind of tech cycles, and we go through these different products. And blockchain and crypto, there was all the rage for the last 5 years, but that's kind of stopped because now it's all been taken over by AI. But what I do suggest to young entrepreneurs is just kind of ride the wave when you're starting out and see where it goes. And with Sutori, it was clearly the wave was Google Docs was just starting with this whole real-time collaboration. Kids were getting more and more online. We're getting laptops in schools, and they're collaborating in real time. And we kind of took that concept, that idea, and made it interactive and fun for the school. And so we rode that kind of Google collaboration wave, and that worked well. And now with Curvo, the wave is like, okay, it's post-COVID. People did all their crypto investments, but now they want to invest in something which is a bit safer, and an ETF, and like buy the whole market. And so we kind of pushed that concept through. So yeah, I do think it's definitely so many different ways to go with the way technology moves and is so fast. But definitely AI is at least going to stay for a few more years for sure.
Thank you. We shall wait and see what happens in the future then. Let's see if we have more questions up at the moment. Okay. Have you fallen in love with your original idea so much that it has been hard to let it go and modify it for the customer's needs?
Yeah, I think it's not a bad way of putting it. I mean, they do say like your startup is kind of like your child in a way. You love it so much, you don't want anyone to take it over or to change it. But I do think it's funny, like working on it now. Like I see it's quite an old product in the sense that, at least from my perspective, because it's been existing for like 10, 11 years. But I still get a lot of joy when I know that teachers are using it every day, and you know the students are benefiting from it. And so I do think you need to also like realize, okay, what are the needs? How can you adapt the software you've done to make sure that it's still useful? And then also for us, it's we have a lot of schools that pay us money, and they're our customers, so they also see that there's such a proliferation of new applications. Like just talking about ChatGPT, like it's used everywhere in schools and by students now. And so it's hard when your technology hasn't really evolved to help with that kind of progress. And so I think it is hard to stay on top of it as well. And then I think with products, like for us, when we started in schools, it was still like education technology. Like when I was growing up, it was pretty much non-existent. Like we had one computer class, I think, a month. And so now, when we were building Sutori, we were in the classroom a lot, and we could see that they were using the computers every day. And so it was quite a shift. And so I think I definitely see that benefit of continuously staying on top of it, and kind of not resting on your laurels. But yeah, like back to that, it's difficult when you obviously, my focus is on the new company more than the previous one, and that was quite a hard shift to change.
Super, thank you so much, Thomas. Before, there is a question, Thomas. How do we handle failures? Failures. How do we handle failures or setbacks in our businesses? Important question.
No, it is, and you're going to get so many. And so I mentioned at the start of the talk that like one good trait is to be an optimist and like think that things will work out without kind of shutting your eyes to the problem. But definitely it's really hard to handle the failure. And I'm not going to say it's been like 11 years of joy. There's been so many things that have gone wrong. I think the setbacks way we've handled it is we have a process with our co-founders is to every time something has gone wrong like that, we look back on it and we do a reflection and we see, okay, what really happened? How could we have done it differently? What did we learn? And that kind of process has helped us realize that sometimes it's out of your hands, but other times it's actions that you've undertaken that you've kind of put that failure on your shoulders. But then I think as an entrepreneur you're kind of always optimist, so you think, okay, that's a setback, but we'll prove them wrong, or we'll show them, to give you an idea, like we pitched for investment when we started Sutori to 53 different investors in Belgium and Europe, and we got rejected by all of them. And so when you get 53 different groups or parties or individuals tell you your concept's never going to work, schools are never going to use technology in the classroom, you kind of get motivated to prove them wrong. Unfortunately, that one we showed them, but I don't know, maybe that's just the way we are. Like me and my co-founders, we want to prove people wrong. But it's definitely a setback. Is tough, and I do say it's important to have the right mentors as well for that, because they can help you. Like that's the thing with a mentor or like some sort of mentorship, is that they've probably had setbacks and failures in their businesses or in their careers, and you'd be surprised at how helpful they can be with those kind of navigating those like tough waters. Sorry, that was a long answer.
No, thank you so much for your answer. And it's true that we learn much more from our failures than the successes. Okay, I think we have time for one last question. What are the key considerations for adapting my business idea to fit the cultural and market dynamics? I moved to a new country with quite a different mindset and approaches.
Yeah, that's a good question. And again, it depends on what the business idea is specifically. Obviously, I'm more in the online realm. And so, my first company, Sutori, was kind of for any kind of teacher at a secondary school level. My company now, Curvo, it's just in Belgium. And so it's a very like Belgian market specific way that we talk about it and we help the customers. So we adapted kind of our concept is for all Europeans, but then we've adapted it really for Belgians. And when I say we adapt it, it's more on the kind of market dynamics of having it in French, in Dutch, in English for the international audience that live in Brussels. And then in terms of the cultural, it is harder to judge. It depends on the business, obviously. I do think there's ways at least that you can kind of integrate into understanding more of how the cultural dynamics work in the country. It's really difficult I do think it's difficult with different mindsets though. That is really a hard challenge. What I would say is that if you're entrepreneurial, what I found, at least from my experience of living in different countries, is that entrepreneurs are kind of, they're all very similar. Everyone wants to solve that kind of problem. And so that mindset is kind of adaptable in any EU country, really. I think entrepreneurs are very similar. Like I have other friends who run startups who grew up in a very different environment, but who are very similar thinking and like problems to solve. And so it is important, if you do move to a new country, to find people who are, self-employed already or becoming self-employed or starting a business. And then I think you'll find that out of those group of people, you'll find people that you resonate with and that you can definitely work with for the future. But it's definitely a tough one. It's a tough situation for sure.
Yeah, we had so many great questions. Thank you for answering them, and thank you for our viewers. Thomas, do you have time for one more, even if I just said it was our last question? I think we have one question from Teresa.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Do you want to, Teresa, open your mic or?
Okay, hello. Thank you very much, Thomas. It's been so insightful and so interesting. Thank you. Okay, well, I will read it. You mentioned that there is this gap, no, between, the traditional curriculum systems, national systems. You yourself studied history. I did history as well in uni. And, then when you go to like real work, real professional environment, things happen faster. And it's not like you don't have 1 year, academic year, to do everything, in a way, slowly. So what do you think, how can we fill this gap between what you are experiencing in your real life experience in so many countries and what is happening at the national, curriculums? Because, we see that we finish our degrees, we lack so many skills. We lack, this even, entrepreneurial mindset. We don't know how to do many practical things in life. So how do you think we can fill this gap from a policy making, perspective?
No, it's really good question, Teresa. No, it is. It's like, it's really difficult because, I don't think I have all the answers to see how we could solve that curriculum level and the policy. I would say that I think you made the point in your question when you said that real life experience is not taught. And so I've been an advocate, at least with Sutori, because obviously we have a platform with teachers, secondary school teachers, and a lot of them who use our platform are quite innovative by nature because they're using technology in the classroom, etc. But what's really cool with them is that we speak to a lot of them. We did some templates related to teaching how to file taxes when you turn 18. Like that was more US centric, but still that was like helpful. And then the other ones were like a business plan case study. So that was getting secondary school students to just do a business plan. And so the problem with those ones, like they're good, but it's out of the curriculum. So an economics teacher has to kind of have that initiative and take it over. And I still don't know why at a country level are these things not taught, or why they're not pushed. That one I still don't have the answer to. What I do know is that it is something that people are talking about, but it's been so slow. Like I've only been in education for 10, 11 years on the tech side, but I've seen that they're just not moving fast enough on it. And I do think it needs to change because there's so like everyone's had to learn all these skills of how do I pay my taxes, how do I why do I pay taxes, like what does it go, what's the money used for, and like why do I have to declare this, why, there's so many questions that I think we can do a better job at a school level and provide curriculum. But yeah, I think my main tip is just to have kind of a real life experience part of the curriculum. That would be the best thing to solve it.
Super, huge thank you for Teresa for a great question, and Thomas being our expert on behalf of YouthProaktiv. I'm sure from behalf of our viewers, thank you for being here today. I think time is flying when you're having fun. Thank you for everyone. Hope you have a wonderful weekend, a relaxing weekend, and full of sun. And I hope you join us on our next webinar. And until then, see you soon. And thank you, a huge thank you for everyone. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Have a good weekend. Bye.
Bye.